Hello and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. Today we're going to take a look at some new juicy builds that will help you just dominate the game. But before we hop into that, let's talk about a question of the day. What is the most underrated champion in your opinion that's currently in the game? Let me know in the comments below. First on this list we have Zeri. Zeri is a champion that many people believe is broken, but it's mostly linked to their experiences with playing with a Lulu. That allows them to go for the most obscure plays and still get away with it even though they should have died earlier. But Zeri also has a few problems. Her laning phase is absolutely terrible. Some people try to make up for it by rushing Trinity Force, and then the components help you have a better lane, for example with Sheen and Phage. But then again, it's a really expensive item, so things get a little bit troublesome along the way. But there's another item or another item constellation that's pretty well on Zeri when it comes to just overall value, and it's the first item, Black Cleaver. It allows you to shed the entirety of the enemy armor after just one hit, and then you deal a lot of extra damage, while also having the bonus movement speed from the item and a lot of base stats, which is pretty neat to have. As your second item, you'd go for Essence Reaver to have infinite mana and infinite ability haste, and then just spam your spells. The third item in line is also doing the same thing, it's Solari Charge Blade. Those three items grant you so much haste that your cooldowns will basically non-existent, then you can poke the enemy from range and then hop in for the kill afterwards. The item afterwards will be Infinity Edge to just make sure you have more damage, and then it's a Bloodthirster and Gluttonous Greaves at any point you see fit. For your runes you want Lethal Tempo, Vampirism or Giant Slayer, Bone Plating and Mana Flow. There's also another nice idea when it comes to Zeri. You can potentially start with a Storm Razor and go into a Static Shift, just to be like a little pokey, similar to a Caitlyn, but your champion doesn't have the range to do so, so you'll most of the time get into real big trouble with this build. But since Zeri is a champion that wants to get really close, the Black Cleaver is a really helpful item for her in terms of movement speed and overall survivability. Because if you don't have a Lulu, you can't just go in, because the Lulu gives you safety and so much damage. Lulu is basically an item, or rather 3 items you add to your inventory, and she makes you basically invulnerable. It's a very stupid thing that inflates a lot of dragon laners for no reason. With all those bruises being absolutely obnoxious to deal with on the Rift, we need to go for something different this time. And it's Kha'Zix with a more sustain-oriented build. The items, or the core items, will remain the same, but we'll make some small adjustments to make this little fellow absolutely broken in terms of survivability. Let's start with the normal items. Here we have a Duskblade to always know where the enemy is, or rather, if they know if we are around, some nice bonus damage, and overall just a very broken first item. Our next item is going to be Black Cleaver. It will provide us with a lot of stats such as ability haste, attack damage and HP. This item gives us the, well, required sustainability in the early stages of the game because we are rather squishy. The item afterwards is going to be a mortal reminder if we really need the pen. Here you can already make adjustments depending on the game state and go for more sustain with a Bloodthirster already, which sounds kinda weird, or rather just a Vampiric Scepter, because you just want to sustain through the game. Other items you want to have afterwards would be, for example, Death Stance, sometimes even a Spirit Visage if you really want to, or a Sterix Gauge. It really depends, but your core items will always be Duskblade and Black Cleaver. Everything else is adjustable, and for boots you want the Gluttonous Boots. For runes you want Conqueror, Vampirism, Bone Plating and Hunter Genius. You'll have so much healing that you can just fight any kind of bruiser without a problem, without worrying about getting instantly killed. Because normally that is an actual problem fighting bruisers if they're on equal fed level. They'll fight you and they'll most of the time win because they have more damage than you do. Sounds kinda weird when you're talking about Kha'Zix, but that's just the reality of things. You need to be good and use your stealth, and then you sustain through their damage, just being better than them. Also worthy of note, since you have so much sustain, just going out of a fight with 10% HP and going to a jungle camp will heal you to full HP without a single problem. For our next champion we have Misfortune. She is quite better than people believe she is. She is not as weak as people make her out to be, but she's still to be played with caution because you need to use your brain quite a bit when playing her. You don't have any escape spell, and if you're caught you'll be dead, but if you play well you can be a menace to just face. For your first item, you want Essence Reaver to have infinite mana. Without this, you'll be out of mana all the time. After that, Infinity Edge. Most of your gameplay will come from just spamming spells, especially your first ability, so you want to make sure you have extra damage on the crits, which Infinity Edge will provide you with. Afterwards, it's the Solari Charge Blade for the ultimate combo to make sure you really pack a punch. The next item is Lord Dominic's Regards, and people will always be like, why not Cyrilda here? You want crit and you want crit as fast as possible. You have an inbuilt slow in your third ability whatsoever that is way more potent than Cyrilda, so you don't really need it. It's nice to have and you can exchange it later on as you complete your build and swap out items, but at this point, Lord Dom's crit will just be better. And then Bloodthirster for the sustain, rounding out the build with the Gluttonous Boots, which obviously you build at any point you believe they're good, which most of the time happens to be between this first item and second item, never before your first item completion. For runes you want Kraken Slayer, Vampirism, Bone Plating and Mana Flow for never running out of mana and always sustaining. The next build on this list comes for a champion which is a fan favorite, it's Zoe. People either hate her or love her, but we all can absolutely agree on that she's broken. She hits you and then you basically die. But there are a few things you don't know yet that Zoe players do wrong and they can deal even more damage. And for this we'll take a look at the item build. For items, we want Luden's Echo as the typical mage item start because it's the best item in the game for mages, nothing comes close. After that we want the Prophet's Pendant. This will provide us with AP and penetration. After this we go for the Void stuff. This will grant us even more pen in combination with Prophet's Pendant and will make sure we'll just demolish the opposition, especially when we talk about runes afterwards. Now finally, after completing those 3 items or components, we'll then go for the Rabadon's Death Cap. After that, we will complete the Prophet's Pendant for the Infinity Orb, and then we have a choice. If you want more pen, you go for the Awakened Soul Stealer, or if you need any other utility item, you just go for the utility item. It doesn't really matter. And for boots, you obviously want Lucidity Boots. For runes in this department, you want Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Bone Plating, and Nimbus Cloak. And now I'll tell you why you want those runes. You want Sudden Impact because it synergizes just so well with your champion. Every teleport, or dash, or anything along those lines will grant you pen for a short period of time. Now, with how your champion works and putting somebody to sleep and then using your ult to move, you will get that pen easy and always on demand. Now if you combine this with Prophet's Pendant, you'll have 25 magic pen. Now if you add Void Staff to the mix, you will reduce the enemy's magic resist so low that most of them at this point in the game already, super early on, have low or zero magic resist. That way all your damage will just go through, and since your numbers are quite insane, you will demolish them. So compared to other builds when you have for example a Rabadon's second item, you will maybe not one-shot them but severely chunk them, but with this build you will one-shot them. And for Nimbus Cloak, since you're picking up summoner spells all the time, well, it just seems natural that you want Nimbus Cloak to just run faster and never be caught, especially with the nerfs in mind for Zoe. And that's it for today's video. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel and come back for more. See you tomorrow.